Now that we finished with the benefits, let's talk about things to take into account. These are not necessarily about the writing of the paper or the content to put in it, but rather things that you should keep in mind before you submit. The three things are: first, what if your country has no connection to the topic? What do we do in those cases? Second is paying attention to deadlines, and third is chair dynamic. So, first, just strategically before we even start writing, what do we do if our country has no connection to the topic? In these cases, the first thing you should do is think, is there any immediate, easy connection that we can think of? For example, like we showed in the Poland example, do our neighbors have a stronger relation to the topic and we can be afraid of the spillover? Another option is to use the WAK method, which is, do I want it, am I afraid of it, or do I know it? So in this case, do you want the topic which is being discussed, like a food subsidy or a new technology? Even if it isn't in your neighboring area, if we're a country who has an interest in that, that can be our link. Do we fear the topic? Is it like global warming or war or some kind of disease, which can scare us even if it isn't our country that is being talked about? And last is, are we an expert in this topic? For example, we used to have this disease, or we dealt with this natural disaster in the past 10 years, which would give us expertise even if we're not in the region. You'll find a link below which will connect you to the topic, which deals with the WAK method and explains how you can use it to show connection to a topic, even if the topic isn't necessarily directly about you. Let's see this in an example. So if our topic is combating dengue fever and other tropical diseases, and we are Norway, a country not famous for its tropical climate or warm weather in any way, and dengue fever, for those who don't know, is a mosquito-borne tropical disease, we need to turn the issue into something that we as Norway could discuss. So, for example, we can say the fund should be created to deal with more diseases, the most important and prevalent ones in the world possibly, and you can add cardiovascular disease there, which is more prevalent in Norway. So your fund will deal with dengue fever and can also deal with other diseases that are more in Norway's direct interest. Also, other cold countries may agree. You can also go with the angle and saying that the problem is one that is more localized and the global community should focus on more global issues. This is sort of taking an anti-case perspective, but if there's a majority of countries who can say that, maybe it's better to try to refocus it. Another one can be maybe saying we're giving too much money to these small local diseases. Maybe we should reduce our contributions. All these are possible. What needs to be remembered is that every country, in theory, should be able to find enough of a link to take a prominent role in the discussion if done right. Moving on to deadlines. Do not send the position paper late. Ever. No matter what. If you have a question about the deadline or the content, email your chair or the secretariat, but do it with enough time to get an answer. And try to send in your paper at least a day early to avoid the rush. What usually happens in chairs' emails with position papers is they get one or two a week before or a few days before, and then if it's 11:59 that night, you see the papers coming in 11:50, 11:51, 11:53, 11:58. 11:58, 11:59, three more times, and then 12, 12:01, 12:02, and then emails apologizing that their internet stalled or whatever else it might be. Chairs do not smile fondly upon these and usually remember whose paper came in late, and you can also usually see the rushed writing for late entries. Chairs will usually also read the papers that come in first before the others, and the earlier papers will be easier for the chair to remember, and usually start framing how the chair looks at the committee room before the other papers start to influence. So this is definitely a very positive thing. When it comes to deadlines, be remembered for the good, definitely not for the bad. Finally, chair dynamics. Along with deadlines, chairs are there to help you. It's part of their job to make sure things are clear. So if you actually have a question, don't be afraid to bother your chair. They are there to help and will respect questions that are clear and simple. Be polite, keep the questions short, and do not try to lobby. Okay, the emails to the chairs are not a place to try to start building that chair relationship, especially if it's something which the chair will feel is trying to gain an unfair advantage. That does not bring you points. Also, do not be annoying. Be remembered for the good. Clear questions, good questions, questions that are relevant to other delegates as well will give you points and show you to be a polite and courteous person. Overall, the rule of thumb is use common sense. These are things to take into account, and now we're going to move on to the last section.